When you take a look at the Eastern Conference and you think about the top teams, some names that come to mind are the Boston Celtics and obviously the Milwaukee Bucks. Maybe the Cleveland Cavaliers. But do you think of the New York Knicks as well too? If you're one ESPN NBA analyst, you're thinking the Knicks. Because according to this analyst, he thinks the Knicks are the third best team in the Eastern Conference. We're going to break down who made those comments and exactly what he said. Also, one New York Knicks player is unfortunately receiving a flopping fine. We're going to figure out exactly which player is receiving that fine and why they're receiving it. All of this and so much more today. So be sure you're subscribed to the channel and turn notifications on so you don't miss a second of the latest content. And now, let's get started. ESPN's Jay Williams actually praised the New York Knicks. Now, this is actually noteworthy because if you know anything about Jay Williams, if you've seen him on ESPN time and time again, he doesn't usually have high praise to say about the New York Knicks or anything to do about what's happening in New York. Now, primarily he's doing that because he likes to rib and joke with Stephen A. Smith, but also it's because to an extent, he believes it as well too. But rarely does he ever praise the New York Knicks. But according to him, if you look at the Eastern Conference and you look at the Milwaukee Bucks and then you look at the Boston Celtics, in his mind, the New York Knicks are the third best team in the Eastern Conference. Let's look at exactly what he said. So according to Jay Williams, he said the following about the New York Knicks and how they were able to compete against a championship contender like Boston. I think the Knicks are better than Cleveland. I mean, they beat Cleveland last year in the playoffs. I'm looking at the Eastern Conference. It's wide open. I think the Knicks are the third best team. Now, that is very high praise coming from Jay Williams, and I appreciate that being a Knicks fan because I agree with him. The East is absolutely wide open. Boston, Milwaukee, and then who else? You can sell me Cleveland. Yes, they got better. Maybe you can sell me a couple of other teams. The Heat, maybe. Maybe you want to think that the Atlanta Hawks got a little bit better. Maybe you want to think other teams maybe got a little bit better. That's fine. But I think the New York Knicks, if you just look at their roster and just look at what the other teams are offering in the Eastern Conference right now, it's hard not to say that the Knicks are at least the top 5 team in the East. And if you want to put them at top 3, like Jay Williams is doing, I don't think that's a problem either. Because again, the East is open. And the team that gets off to a hot start behind Boston and Milwaukee is going to be that third team in the East. Now, maybe that's Philadelphia. Maybe that's the Knicks. Maybe that's Cleveland. Maybe that's the Hawks. I can't say who the exact team is. But whoever gets off to that hot start is taking that spot. Now, the New York Knicks have the hardest chances to actually do that because if you didn't know, their first 10-game stretch is the hardest in the NBA. They start with Boston and they end with Boston again. So it's going to be very interesting to see what the New York Knicks do and how they handle themselves as they move forward throughout this season. But it's not crazy or outlandish to say that the Knicks might be the third best team in the East. He got a lot of flack for actually saying this. A lot of people on social media basically laughed him out of the room, said you're crazy for saying that, said, did you forget about Miami? I don't think it's about forgetting about Miami. I think people are forgetting about the Knicks. The Knicks were this close to getting to the Eastern Conference Finals last year. They went to the Eastern Conference semifinals for the first time in 10 years since the Knicks had Melo. Those things are significant. You have to look at those things. I understand why you wouldn't want to look at those things, but you have to look at those things because it helps put things in perspective. The Knicks right now might be the best team that they've been since 10 years ago. They might be better because they get to build off of what they have. That team 10 years ago with Melo was built out of veterans and aging veterans at that. The team that went to the playoffs last year was built off of players getting into their prime or already in their prime or entering their prime. Young players, Emmanuel Quickly-like players, RJ Barrett-like players. These type of players who are still going to be part of the roster are only going to get better as they age in this league and as they continue to work on their game and practice. They are going to be one of the players that you look on the New York Knicks and you think to yourselves, that player has grown and gotten better each and every year. Will the New York Knicks take that third spot in the East, or will another team do it? That still remains to be seen. But the Knicks have a very good shot to actually take that third spot in the Eastern Conference. It's not something that people should be laughing at or thinking it's a joke or think people are kidding about, because they are actually a good team. Could they be a better team? Yes. Could they do certain things better? Yes. They're not perfect, but they're not bad either. Please, put some respect on this New York Knicks team's name. But I'm excited to see what this Knicks team does moving forward this season. But don't think that people calling the New York Knicks potentially the third best team in the East, it's something to laugh at. Because I think the Knicks are going to show you, game in and game out, why they can be a very serious and very hard team to beat on any given night. Donte DiVincenzo unfortunately received a flopping fine. Now, this was actually announced by Bleacher Report, so shout out to them. As you can clearly see here, the Knicks' Donte DiVincenzo actually received a fine, a $2,000 fine by the NBA for flopping versus the Boston Celtics. Now, I know what you're thinking. Troy, that game happened a couple of days ago. How is he receiving a flopping fine right now? Well, good question. Well, thanks to Bleacher Report, they helped to answer that question. According to them, they state that the fine comes as a result of the new in-game flopping penalty that was approved by the Board of Governors ahead of the season. The main piece of the rule is that any player called for a foul will be assessed with a non-unsportsmanlike technical foul, and the opposing team will get to shoot a free throw attempt. However, if the flopping call is missed during the game, but discovered later, the offending player gets fined $2,000, hence DiVincenzo's situation. And again, he was fined for a flopping situation that happened during the Celtics game. The play in question occurred during the second quarter while DiVincenzo was guarding Boston's Jaylen Brown and got bumped by him, stumbling away towards the sideline and not getting the foul call. But if you looked at the way he was stumbling back, he stumbled back as if like 3 or 4 players had pushed him. So again, it looked a little bit outrageous and a little bit acted on. And if referees see that now and they don't call it during the game to give the other team that technical free throw, you're going to get hit with that $2,000 fine. And that's exactly what happened with Donte DiVincenzo. So the only thing I can say to New York Knicks players, and not even New York Knicks players, any player around the NBA, stop flopping. And if you do flop, don't make it so obvious, because if you act it out and look like you got hit by a car, but instead somebody half your size attempts to go past you, and then when they go past you, you get knocked to the floor, yeah, you might get that flopping call, just like a former Knick, Kristaps Porzingis, did in that same game. So don't worry about it, Donte. A lot of players are going to get hit with that same exact penalty and get that same exact fine. I wouldn't worry about it, but it's a warning. The league is looking at this. The league is going to call this, and if they miss it, they're going to hit you with a penalty after the fact, so that way you know. Stop flopping. That is one of the themes for this season for the NBA. NBA players, New York Knicks players, anybody looking to enter the NBA, do not flop, stop flopping, and if you're going to flop anyways, at least don't make it so obvious, so that way you get the call anyways. But at the end of the day, flopping is definitely going to be frowned upon by the league. They're going to call it a lot more tightly. You're going to see this called a lot more throughout this season. If you hate it, you love it, whatever. It doesn't matter. They're still going to call it. Are they going to get it wrong? Absolutely. And they've admitted as much already. But sometimes they're going to get it right, and it's going to help the game move faster, move better, and help stop these outlandish, ridiculous type of plays from other players when they get hit from these smaller type of guards, and they might be centers, and they look like they get pushed half the court and still get the call. At least sometimes those calls are not going to happen as much anymore because they're going to stop. And I think that's exactly why they're doing this in the first place. So shout out to the league for doing that. I don't care whether they get it wrong or right sometimes because I feel like it's going to help the game overall. But let me know what you think. What do you think about the league calling this new technical flopping foul? Do you like the fact that players get fined after the fact? Do you like that the teams get that technical free throw? Let me know in the comments because honestly, guys, I would love to hear from you. But that's going to do it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, go ahead and smash that like button, leave a comment below. And of course, guys, please subscribe to the channel. Until next time, Knick fans. Peace.